Our interview for Coconuts TV today is with Trevor George. Trevor is a member of a family who have a very long tradition of involvement with Cambridge and earlier Abbey United. Trevor, thanks for agreeing to share your memories with us today. It's nice to see you. Let's start with a couple of questions about yourself, and then we'll move towards your family background. That's the thing. Where were you born? When were you born?
I was born in 1957, Mill Road Maternity Hospital. I'm pointing that way because that's where we are in control of me. And lived in Coleridge Road with my mum and dad.
So very much a Cambridge boy.
Born and bred.
Of a Cambridge family.
Mum's from Solham.
Okay.
But dad's Cambridge, yeah.
Okay. And your granddad, would he have been
Cambridge as well?
Yeah. Okay. So your family itself has got quite an involvement with Cambridge United, and as I say, Abbey United in particular early on. Does that go back as far as your grandparents?
My grandparents, my mum and dad, myself, and then my son.
Yeah. So 4 generations?
Yeah, 4 generations.
To date?
Yeah, definitely to date. Yeah. No grandchildren on the horizon yet.
That'll happen. Okay, let's go to your bigger family story then. You said your grandparents had some involvement with the club. Obviously, it was Abbey United back then.
Yeah.
So would this be the 30s or the 40s?
I'd be the 30s. My grandparents moved from Cambridge Place, which is off Hills Road, to Ditton Fields. I think it was in the 30s. It might have been in the 40s.
Yeah.
My granddad was very much a member of the supporters club over there, and a big United fan. So he sort of lived up here. What's it? 600 yards to his house in Ditton Fields, so very, very close.
So obviously, even at that time, it was very much a community feel to the club in terms of.
Yeah, next door to my grandparents lived the Morgans.
Yes.
Arthur Morgan played with my dad here in the 50s. Mrs. Morgan and my grandmother served teas from the tea hut, which is the back room at the supporters club over there. So very much involvement. And my granddad helped build the Habbin stand, physically helped build it, and in thanks for that, the club gave him a number of shares, a very few number of shares. I can't remember if it was 2 or 4 or something like that.
Now, did your dad ever talk about the time building the Habbin? Because we have it from Peter Rapley that the players were told, you're doing nothing in the afternoon, you may as well come in and lay some concrete.
He's never mentioned it. Well, unfortunately he's dead now, but he never mentioned actually doing anything. But then he worked full time at University Press, so as a printer. So I doubt if he'd have much time to come and do that.
I understand that, but it seems to have been very much a community thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
So going back to your grandparents, would you say then that they probably started the involvement with the football club?
Oh yeah, definitely. Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. And of course it was called Abbey United then.
Indeed it was. And obviously what we've heard is that even at those times it was a club which was going places. You know, it was small steps. We were always moving forward.
Yeah, but am I not right? Cambridge Town, which was Cambridge City, were the bigger club at that time by quite a bit, I think, at the time.
I think there were reasons for that, which involved finance and
probably
backing from signals and things like that.
Right.
But yeah, it was always known that they had the better ground of the two.
Yeah. And there was always, even in my childhood, there was a massive divide. There was a north of the river and south of the river divide. If you lived south of the river, you couldn't be a City fan. Yeah. Well, certainly in the 60s. Yeah. Anybody who was slaughtered by the rest of us.
I can imagine. As a posh boy. Yeah. Okay, let's move to your dad then, because he was the one who really got involved to a different level, wasn't he? Because your dad, I believe, played his first game for the Abbey United when he was very young.
Yeah, I think it's, 16, 17, something like that.
Yeah, and he made his debut in 1941-42 season, so obviously this was wartime. Did he ever talk about that?
He talked about playing when he came home, because he joined the Navy. I don't know if he played, presumably he played before he went and joined the Navy. He certainly played when he came home. I do remember wartime, his favourite wartime story wasn't really to do with football, but he was in the Navy. He sailed all around the world to Borneo and back, and never saw a minute's action. I don't know if he was pleased or not, but you know, no action at all in the war. That's got to be something else.
That is something. But he was there and he was ready for it.
Oh, right.
That's the thing, anyway, isn't it? So he come back when he was demobbed. Your dad.
Yeah.
Your dad, Albert. Obviously. Was he known as Albert? Or was he
Yeah,
known?
Albert.
He was
Yeah,
Albert.
always Albert.
Okay.
I'm trying to think. There was a nickname, but I can't remember what it was. No.
So he obviously, with a background in playing football and playing when he was back on leave, and then he would be demobbed towards the 46 or thereabouts. And I know he returned to the Abbey in 47, 48. But he played for Saxons. Now, did he ever mention Saxons?
He mentioned Saxons, but he was more proud of the fact of his schoolboys. He played a lot for the schoolboys with Russell Crane, of course.
Yes.
Unfortunately, Russell died, as you know, a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, him and Dad played a hell of a lot together for the schoolboys, and he would talk a little bit about their partnership, which lasted many years through schoolboys to playing here to the what would be mid-50s. So that would be sort of 15. At least a 15-year.
Indeed. And again, we're talking very much a community feel because these boys stayed locally.
Yeah. Dad lived in Dittonfields, Russell lived in Ditton Walk, Arthur Morgan obviously Dittonfields. Yeah. So it was a very much a community club, which over the I've been working for or with the club for over 50 years, and there's still that feel now. Albeit a wider community, but it's still a community feel, yeah.
I think it's been resurrected actually over the past few years, which is a good. I think it's a good thing. Right. So as I say, we're going to get to your career throughout as time goes on, but let's keep with the family aspects just for a little while.
Yes.
Talking about your dad. Now he came back and he returned, as I say, seriously to the Abbey in 47, 48. So by then he would be about, we're thinking 22 or thereabouts. Sort of getting towards his prime physically and that sort of thing. And can you tell us which position did he actually play whenever he got?
Mainly centre forward, and I think he played what he would call left half, left midfield as we call it nowadays. But he did score quite a lot of goals.
He certainly did. The record we have is 264 games and 109 goals. Now, how many strikers, out-and-out strikers, wouldn't take that today? And the answer is very few.
It's some record.
Isn't it just? Right, now tell me something. He actually transitioned the time between Abbey United and Cambridge United. Did he ever talk about the change?
He's always said that he scored the last ever goal for Abbey United and the first ever goal for Cambridge United, and he was quite proud of that fact. But we can confirm that. We can confirm that
he did certainly score the last goal for Abbey. We think he scored the second last goal. Let me just check this. He was the second last man to score for Abbey, but the very first to score for Cambridge United. Now, irrespective of whether it's first or second, that's something to be remembered.
Oh, certainly something to be remembered. That was the thing that he would always sort of make him sit back and smile.
Yeah, I can imagine. And now I say he was the second last man to score for Abbey United, but he actually scored in the 95th minute of the game. It just happens that it was extra time and someone else scored 10 minutes later, so fair enough. And the person who scored was called Dolly Pearson, which is just a wonderful name that you wouldn't see today, playing for Cambridge United. The final for that game, because it was a cup game, was actually played the following season.
He actually talked a little bit more of when he left here, because he went to play as player manager of Exning.
Yes.
When he left here. And there were times that to get to Exning, obviously it's 15 miles up the road.
Yes.
He would cycle from Dittonfields, play the match, then cycle back. Alternatively, he had to get down to the railway station, to Ely, to Newmarket, and walk to Exning, and reverse journey. So whichever way it was, but he got paid a little bit of money. I've no idea how much, but it supplemented his wages.
And to say he was actually player coach.
He's player coach.
Wasn't he? So despite even with the travelling, he sometimes had to play a game in the middle and then travel back as well.
Oh yes, he's player coach. So yeah.
Right, we have it that he returned to the Abbey for one season.
I didn't know that.
In 1956.
No, I didn't know that.
Okay, so he didn't. Did he talk much about his time at the Abbey?
No.
Was it a happy time in his life? Do you think?
Oh, it was a very, very happy time in his life, but he didn't. He was such a modest man. It would be if anybody asked him, yes, you know, yeah, I played for Cambridge United, but he wouldn't say much about it, and then they'd go and talk something else.
Yeah,
He didn't say a lot about it.
Interesting. Okay, so certainly Albert George is a name that comes up a lot when we talk to other players of that era. Albert George is a name that comes up a lot, so he'll certainly be remembered.
Well, he's actually buried in that goalmouth just there.
Area.
Well, my son scored in that goal a couple of years, 2 or 3 years ago in a match, and he was chuffed to bits that he'd scored over his granddad's ashes.
How good is that? Very good is that. Okay, fantastic. So we've moved through your grandfather, your grandparents indeed, because you say your grandmother was involved as well in terms of the social side of the club, helping with the fans and that sort of thing. We've moved through your dad, who had developed a career here, a very good career, and one which is remembered by players who played with him. And in fact, the little quote, just for family reference here, is that Albert will always be remembered at the Abbey for his popularity and pleasant manner.
Yeah.
He seems to have been someone who was popular as well.
He was, yeah, he was very popular. He was throughout his life, not just here, where he worked, etc. He was quite a jovial joker. Just trying to think if there's any anecdotes I could actually say, but I think I think the one's best not to.
Let's move to your own time then. What are your first memories of football in Cambridge or the Abbey or anything?
My first memories, well, when Dad finished playing for Exeter and coming back here, what you said, he then started playing in the Cambs League for the work side at Cambridge University Press. Yeah. And that's when I remember, because I was born in '57, I can remember as a young lad going to watch him play at University Press, which would be in the, if I was born in '57, probably, I don't know, 63, 64, 65, something like that. I used to go and watch him play and play behind the goal. Then when I got slightly older, he would let me come up here. And my earliest memories are cycling from our home in Coleridge Road along the White Path, which is where Barnwell Road is now, the track from where his Sainsbury's now to the bottom of Barnwell Road, to Grandma and Granddad's in Ditton Fields. And I would walk to the game here. He would dump me in the crowd and go in the sports club for a beer. And I then progressed when I was about 10 years old to becoming a ball boy here. My position as a ball boy, and I did it for 3 or 4 years in the late 60s, early 70s, was at the gate where now the second half of the main stand is, because obviously it was only half. There's only half of what is now the main stand from here to the halfway line, and then there was a little gate which was really could be used to get tractors and that on the pitch. And I was a ball boy at that gate. And my granddad used to come and stand at that gate during the game. And of course, the second half of the stand has now been built on it, which I've always personally recalled it as the Alan Barley Memorial Stand, because Alan Barley's transfer to Derby financed, in my opinion, that stand, because it was built very, very soon afterwards. So I was a ball boy at that point, which I must remember to say now in case I forget later. My son, many generations later, or many years later, became a ball boy here. But anyhow, in the mornings we had to gather here in the mornings and put the programmes together, because obviously it'd been printed, but they were printed in I don't know, 5 or 6 A4 sides paper, so we had to put them all together, staple them, fold them, one programme, 2, 3, and we did that in the mornings. We came up here in the mornings before the game, and there was a director who was presumably tasked with keeping an eye on us, providing us with the programmes when we got here, and that director was Reg Smart. And this would have been in 67, 68, something like that. We certainly did that for quite a while, I don't know, a year, 2 years, something like that, before it went out properly to printers. and of course that saved the club money.
Of course.
My main recollection of those is when I was a ball boy. It sticks to me this day, is when we played Chelsea, which I think was 2 or 3 days after they won the FA Cup. And they paraded the cup around. But my most vivid memories, because obviously there was 15,000 here on the day, is fans sitting on top of what was the old changing rooms from the 40s or 50s in that corner ground where obviously the stadium / police control room became before in here, and that was jam-packed full of people sitting on top of that watching, and of course that's still the record attendance to the crowd.
Now it's interesting that you
Yeah,
said you were a ball boy
15,000.
from 68 through roughly 72. That was another, to refer back to something we said earlier, the club was moving forward, but suddenly it took a gigantic leap, because just in that, right in the middle of that period, we get into the Football League.
Yeah, obviously Bill Lewis took us up and that type of thing. But my memories are quite cloudy of that. I still think I was quite young.
Yeah.
What would I have been, 14, something like that.
Yeah.
When did we get in the league? 71? Yeah, I'd have been 14.
Yeah.
So I just remember that the atmosphere around the club was electric, especially the first season in the Football League. So I was ball boy, obviously, in the first game in the Football League. Colin Meldrum scored the goal, didn't he? Yeah, Colin Meldrum scored the goal. First one. Yeah. I remember it, and all the time I'm looking down there because my memories.
Yeah.
I was always a ball boy in that corner where I ended up policing for many years. So
Which we'll get to. Did you have any favourite players about that team then? Because there's usually one or two who stick in your mind. A lot of folks say Rodney Snack, because he's been.
Well, Rodney obviously still lives across the road, and I've known Rodney subsequently because he became a fireman. I was a local policeman. He's local policeman. But no, I think Ian Hutchinson. Ian Hutchinson, because of his long throw, which was unique at the time before he went to Chelsea. He was a centre forward. I was a centre forward. He was bustling and aggressive. I've had that reputation over the years of being a little bit aggressive, and Alan behind the camera's nodding his head there because he's had to referee me a few times.
We're still talking about your footballing time here now,
yeah. The ball-boying is a particularly favourite time because I think, what are we talking about now? 40 years ago. It just seems like yesterday when I think of being out there.
And you must have had the chance to meet your heroes at that time.
Oh yeah. You know, we stood in the we stood in the tunnel as the players went out. One thing I do want to mention here. I don't know if it's ball boy. It might be a little bit more into the 70s. It must have been in the 70s. So I'm just going to jump forward while I remember this. I was no longer a ball boy, and I must have actually been a young policeman or whatever, or a cadet. Or was it in the 60s? I'm sorry, I'm waffling here because I'm trying to remember. I was actually standing with some mates in the Habbin stand. Might have been the 60s. Cambridge United playing Cambridge City, and the Cams Professional Cup final, and Mel Slack, so it must have been in the 60s, must have been the 60s. Mel Slack was ex-favourite Cambridge United player, was back here playing for Cambridge City, and Mel got sent off, and I've never heard a cheer like it to this day. Obviously it would have been, 7,000-8,000 in here for a game like that. And as I say, I was over there in Habbin stand, Mel got sent off, and the cheering from the United fans was so immense. And I got to know Mel well over the years after that, because he ended up as a landlord in the pub at Tevisham and a local taxi driver. And I did mention to him once or twice after that about.
Absolutely. Okay, so as I say, you've done your ball boy time up to 72, and of course the early 70s was quite a tough time for football because we were starting to see the era of crowd trouble and things coming in. So what did you decide to do? You decided to become a policeman.
I wouldn't say about deciding to become a policeman. I was at school not knowing what to do, and saw this job advertisement about being a police cadet. But it was a lot of sport and outward bound kind of hiking, camping, and I fancied some of that, and it turned out it was 2.5 weeks at Huntington Tech, and 2.5 days a week at Huntington Tech, and 2.5 days a week sport. So I did that and sort of drifted into being a policeman. And when they had to find us accommodation, I just sort of flippantly said, well, you don't have to find me accommodation if you post me to Cambridge, because I can live with mum and dad. And because we lived in Huntingdon for the first year, or the year of being a cadet. And all right then. So that's how I got to become posted to Cambridge, because they didn't have to find me anywhere to live. So and obviously I stayed in Cambridge for the rest of my police career. Never moved out of it.
So how did you manage to wangle it, or fix it, or whatever you did, that you became the local bobby at the Abbey?
How did I fix it?
How did it happen?
For a couple of years I was driving the Panda car for this area, which covered Newmarket Road round to Romsey Town, and it just happened that the local officer, whose name was Sparks, PC Sparks, retired, and I'd let it be known that I would love to do the local policing on push bike in this area, and so be it. I ended up doing it because in the years sort of, when was I become a PC in 75, so from 75 to 80, I didn't have a lot of involvement with the club in respect to working in conjunction with them or anything. I just came up when I could as a fan, but it wasn't very often because I was playing in the Cams League.
I was going to say that at this time you were still playing football
Yeah,
at a decent level yourself.
I think that the level went up. I was playing in the Cams League, and Terry Eads, one of the probably all-time greats, I would say, centre halves here, was manager at Histon and asked me to go over to Histon, and I turned him down. I didn't think I could combine playing in the Eastern Counties League with being on shift. But I kept on getting nagged by some of the players I played with on Sundays, and also an officer called Graham Dogood, who played for Cambridge City, and then Histon, and eventually Alan Doyle, who was then manager, not Terry anymore, persuaded me to go and play for Histon. But I only went to play on the basis that my police work would come first, because I was playing Tuesdays for the force side, Thursdays for the local police side, Sundays in the Sunday senior division, and my wife said, can you really cope with 4 games a week? And of course, when you're in your 20s and whatever, no children. So, but Histon had 3 teams at the time. When I left Cams League and went to the Eastern Counties League, their first team were in the Eastern Counties League, their reserves were in the, what is now the Kershaw Premier, and the 18 were in Division 2 or something like that. So I didn't mind playing for whichever team. In fact, I'd rather play for the reserves at Willingham or over, rather than play for the first team at Clacton or Lowestoft, because I didn't have to take so much time off work.
Indeed. But actually, if you think of it, that was quite a compliment for Terry Eads, as you say, to look at you as a forward and say, you know, there's something there, because he obviously has played against seriously good players. And
well, I'll state here and now, I wasn't as good as my dad. Never. And he told me so. And he watched many of my games.
Dads can do that.
Nicely, but he said,
Good stuff. So you also played occasionally for United Reserves?
Yeah, what happened was, after a few years at Histon, Chris Turner said, why don't you come training with us? And and I was a local copper at the time in '82. So this would have been, I don't know, '86, something like that. So I went up, did a whole pre-season when I could. I remember going up, running up and down the Royston Hills on one day, and then coming back and doing a 2 to 10 shift round here. Well, I think I spent the last 5 hours sitting at Marshall Security doing nothing because my body ached so much. Yeah. But Chris said, "Yeah, we'll get you play occasionally," and I don't know. I played on the Saturdays when I policed the home games on the Saturdays, and when the first team were away, I played. But it was only about the same standards that what I'd been playing in the Eastern Counties League. It wasn't the highest of standards. Okay, but there was a few decent players.
I was going to say, let's think of some of the players you played with. There was some seriously good players to come.
Yeah,
through at that time.
The Kimball twins played.
Absolutely.
Ian Benjamin.
Yep.
A certain gentleman who now works for a club called Andy Beattie.
Yeah.
In fact, I was a centre forward, but I remember Chris asked me to play one game at the back with Andy Beattie. I remember playing out here, having never played centre half in my life, and Andy talking me through the whole game. I mean, professionals obviously talk a lot more than a lot more sense on the pitch. I remember playing with Gary Johnson reserves, but I think that the best player, if you want to call it that, who played for the reserves, he took the team one day as sort of manager coming back from injury, was John Beck. John had us doing one of his famous, or became famous, pre-match warm-ups, and he had us sprinting across the pitch and such a physical pre-match warm-up. I was shattered before. I wasn't the only one. We were shattered before the game started because we weren't all professionals. In that side, we had Trevor Ball playing, Ian Darler,
Mark
Saggers. Yeah, I remember Mark Saggers playing, and then going on the radio not long after the game on Radio Cambridge talking about the game we'd all played in. So yeah, but it was in the days where we just helped out when we could, but I ended up playing, I don't know, 15, 18 games, something like that year, and scoring a few goals.
And an experience that...
It was a great experience, but there was one game we were playing somewhere in North London where I was quite physical with the centre half, and I was playing up front with John Rigby, and this lad was kicking 7 bells out of me, and I managed to swap with John, and then the ball come up and I've caught this bloke with my elbow, which wasn't unusual at the time, and he turned around and gives me a left hook. I'm spark on the ground. The physio came on. Anyhow, I think Chris Turner came on. All I can remember is Chris Turner saying, "Don't worry, Plod," because he called me Plod. "Don't worry, Plod, he's off." He got sent off. Well, Chris was laughing his head off because the bloke thought he'd decked, obviously, centre forward. What Chris knew is he'd decked a copper.
Okay, so you played as we said, alongside and trained and all the rest, and there were some seriously good players at that time. Was it obvious that some of them were better than others and some of them were going to really make an impact?
Oh yeah. There was a lad called is it Neil Horwood, tall, whatever, but you could just see that how I was thinking, how is he professional? You know, things like that.
Yeah.
But there was some John Beck, wonderful on the ball.
So was John intense even then? Because he's quite, he came across as an intense.
Yeah, he was intense. Yeah. He was intense. I do remember when he was manager one day though, he called me up and said, "Can I come to the ground?" He said, I've got a problem. Don't know how to sort it out. He, because obviously a lot of the youth team in those days lived in Reggie's hostel down at the bottom of Mill Road. I come up here and in uniform and all the rest of it, and he got a lump of cannabis which he'd found in the youth hostel. Didn't know who, well, they may have known who had it, I don't know. Didn't have to do it. He said, "What do I do with it?" I took it around the back of the main stand and slung it in Barmel Pit. I said, "I'm not bothering with something small as this." But I always had visions of a swan flying around Barmel Pit having swallowed some of this cannabis.